I don't need to explain any of the background info because you watched the Amara Vex video, obviously, so we're just gonna get right into it. Today is all about my favorite clone trooper. That's right, Sentinel is the second character that the game gives you, but he's first in my heart. This game only has 4 tanks as of launch, but it's pretty easy to see why this guy is arguably one of the best among them. With a surplus of health, close and long-range combat abilities, and one of the most unique ultimates I've ever seen in any games. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't start with some lore on the man himself, so here we go. Despite voice lines like, "Witness the might of the Empire," Sentinel actually hates those old regime losers, and he kind of just uses it as a way to build a character while he's in an arena, like a food influencer who drinks wheatgrass and then spits it out in between takes before uploading to TikTok. This storytelling tactic gives the audience someone to dislike, which is a very common wrestling persona tactic, and leads to something we all know well called hate watching. This was not great for his relationships with some of the other hunters, however, as Graz, being a Wookiee, has had a bad history with the Empire. This led to the two of them being rivals of sorts, both in and out of the arena. Other than this, Sentinel seems to get along pretty well with anyone who understands that actors are not the characters they play on screen. For instance, his room is directly across the hall from Reeves, and sometimes they hang out. I also found out that he and Slingshot are friends, although some piece of lore specifically stated that Slingshot ran over his foot multiple times in combat, so it kind of just seems like a functional relationship where Sentinel just keeps Slingshot around to take care of his gear. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, let's talk about Sentinel's kit, and not just stuff that I need to remember for my fanfic later. To start with, Sentinel has 300 hit points, which is actually the lowest of all of the different tanks in the game, putting him 25 points behind Slingshot. This is, however, not something you need to worry about in the slightest, as most of his actual health pool comes from his massive shield, which starts out at 275 HP and builds all the way up to 325 HP once you hit Hunter level 21 with him. This does take a bit of leveling, but once you get him to that point, he technically has an effective HP of 625, which is insane. The shield can be activated as soon as he comes to life, though it will slow him down a bit. It covers him on one side, however, leaving the other 270 degrees around him vulnerable to incoming fire. When it is deactivated manually, the shield will start to recover, although pretty slowly. If it is taken out completely, you will have to wait a full 12 seconds for your shield to come back, which is bad news being that Sentinel has a pretty big hitbox. While the shield slows his running speed, it does not actually inhibit anything else, as Sentinel can continually fire his E-Web heavy repeater the entire time the shield is active. This powerful gun's full name is actually the Emplacement Weapon Heavy Blaster, but E-Web is so much easier to say. It is essentially a turret gun, and actually shows up in the movies as well. In all other forms of media, this weapon is too big to be operated by a single person without a tripod, but Sentinel gets a pass because he is my special boy and I love him. Numbers wise, this weapon can do 10 damage to the body or 20 damage to the head, and fires a really steady stream of bullets. This may not seem like a lot of damage, but the rate of fire is incredibly high and takes a long time to overheat. Much like Imara's A280 blaster rifle, the E-Web is a laser weapon, meaning that there is no fall-off damage, very little spread, and it is incredibly effective at pretty much any range. His gun is capable of more than just near endless bullets, however, as another one of his special abilities is called the suppressing shot, and if you spend any time on Reddit, you will find that people either love or hate this move, and there is no in between. Suppressing shot takes a second to charge, but once it does, it unleashes a specific blast that downs and stuns an opponent. While this move move does generate a lot of heat for your weapon, it can actually be reduced as you level up, making it even easier to switch back to normal fire to finish off the elimination after you get the suppressing shot out. At Sentinel Hunter level 23, the game will even increase the stun time by half a second, making it even deadlier. It also does 40 to 50 damage, making it that much easier to get your eliminations. Just like in the Amara video, my main recommendation for this is to be reloading as soon as you get anywhere near the red. Reloading will help keep you alive longer and puts you in great situations when you can keep firing while your opponent is stuck in the overheating animation. Sentinel's final ability is also linked to his weapon, although it has nothing to do with blaster bolts or suppressing fire. Let me ask you something. Do you get frustrated when people get too close to you and it makes them harder to hit with those bullets that they so desperately deserve to be full of? Don't you wish you could just smack them in the face and send them flying backwards? Wouldn't it be nice to say no, no, no while they approach you with their stupid clubs and lightsabers? Well, now you can by simply using a little move we like to call Barrel Slam. This wonderful melee move not only deals 40 to 50 damage, but also sends your opponents flying backwards away from you, where they will be easier to shoot with a gun. And what's that? I'm even being told that for no additional cost, except for maxing your hunter out at level 25, your targets will take even more damage if you hit them into a wall as you knock them away. How often can you do that? Every 2 seconds? Why, yes indeed. We love to see it, don't we, folks? This impressive set of abilities makes Sentinel one of the most formidable forces of nature out there in the arena. But honestly, sometimes don't you just think to yourself, man, I wish that there were more Sentinel. Well, now you can. Folks, I am happy to announce that his ultimate ability, Empire's Finest, gives you just that. Once that ultimate bar is all the way full, you just need to tap that little X button to make your dreams come true. Sentinel's ultimate ability summons 2 clones which descend from the sky and immediately start to back you up in battle. The boys are unfortunately smaller than Sentinel himself and carry just a regular blaster rifle, which they do fire with classic Stormtrooper aim. Despite not hitting every shot, though, they are incredibly helpful for a number of reasons. The clones will start by shooting at nearby enemies, even if you can't see them, which makes them a lovely little early warning system. Along with this, your troopers do not die if you get gunned down, but rather stick around long enough for you to be revived. At this point, they will return to follow you around wherever you are, returning fire as they make their way across the battlefield. I, personally, have gotten a number of posthumous eliminations as my clones kept firing while my body lay limp and dead on the ground. Another fun fact, the troopers count as characters in that they can be healed and buffed by the support characters, but they don't count as eliminations when they get killed in Team Deathmatch. Interestingly, they also do more damage than Sentinel does, hitting for 15 to the body and 30 to the head. Now, to be honest with you, I can't find a reliable source on how much health they have, but it seems to be about 150, which is pretty decent for 2 free guys. The last thing that I want to get into is Sentinel's theme song. Sorry about that. If there's any downside to choosing Sentinel, it is the brass section. Okay, let's get into tips and tricks. First off, another thing that I said during the Amara of X video, do not shoot Char while he is green. That heals him. Okay, now for the actual tips. Many characters in this game are ranged fighters, doing best from a distance, hitting precision shots, while other characters are melee focused, meaning they want to get up close and do a lot of damage like that. Sentinel can be both. As soon as you can see anyone, start filling them with blaster bolts. Then, once they get close enough to you to try and fight back, hit them with the barrel slam. Like I said, Sentinel's melee has a 2-second cooldown, meaning that there is no reason you should not be playing whack-a-mole every time you are on the objective. Sentinel's melee can also hit multiple people at once, making it extremely effective for crowd control. There is almost no pause between doing the melee attack and shooting, so you might as well just hold the gun down. Quick little tip for trophy chase. If you shoot the trophy carrier with the suppressing shot, they will drop the trophy on the ground and then be stunned long enough for someone to rush in and take it from them. Sentinel's main weakness is mobility, as he moves very slowly while he has his shield out, and he has no sprinting or vertical movement options. You will want to account for this by keeping an eye on your surroundings at all times. Sentinel will not be able to run out of combat when he gets surrounded, which is why sometimes keeping your back to a corner or a wall is a lifesaver. Being pocketed by a support player is also an ideal situation, and for anyone who doesn't know what that means, pocketing just means that you, as the support player, are focusing on one single character the entire game. Keep your support player behind your shield, and the two of you will live forever. I have to warn you about the ultimate as well. It is great to have the clones with you because they provide blind spot cover and body blocking, but you need to be aware of when exactly to use them. Sentinel unfortunately cannot fire or swing the E-web when he calls in the clones, so even when it seems like they might help you in a firefight, it could also just get you killed taking the time to activate them. You can still move around, which is a good idea, but if your shield drops and you're fighting 2 or more full health opponents, you might just die. You need to remember as well that they are only there for a limited amount of time, so choosing when to activate them is a very important decision, especially when you are running somewhere or defending a point and there are no enemies around. The last thing I will talk about is Sentinel's shield. Your first goal with Sentinel should be to get to Hunter level 21. The extra 50 shield health at that point is crucial for fending off a lot of enemies. Along with that, you constantly need to be paying attention to how much shield health you actually have, as it going down at a crucial moment can absolutely be a game ender. That 12-second recharge time is a killer. Do not be afraid to drop your shield and let it recharge even just a little bit when you're running somewhere, like grabbing a health or ultimate pickup, or you need to move to a new point in dynamic control. My final piece of advice: Sentinel was made to hold B, and I don't mean the button on your Switch controller. What I'm talking about is the middle point in power control. Do not be one of those people who thinks that holding A or C is a safe idea, as it will lose you the game. Sentinel has a ton of health, a ton of damage, and near full directional control when his ultimate is active. Use all of this and his suite of impressive abilities to hold the center point and you will be golden. Let your teammates hold one of the other points. Hopefully it only takes 1 or 2 of them to do that and someone can come and join you in the middle, but if no one can, don't worry too much about it because Sentinel was basically built to take on multiple enemies at once. Now, for anyone looking for tips to fight against Sentinel, my main piece of advice is this: get behind him, or at least far enough to the left or right of the shield that you can peek around it. It can also be very helpful to coordinate with teammates and go one direction while your teammate goes the other direction, so Sentinel has to turn to look at one of you, leaving himself open from the other direction. Arontal and Slingshot both have excellent ultimates that do great space control that will go over the shield, and if you're playing as Diago, the piercing rounds ultimate will just fire directly through the shield into his skull, so you don't need to worry about it. Alright, that is all I've got for you. So go out there and live your best life as the world's heaviest trooper. If you liked this video or it taught you anything, please hit me with that like, and hey, remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything like this from me in the future. And the most important thing that I have left for last is that you need to remember